students, welcome to my channel. This is Dr. Prats. All the videos on Oral Radiology series is done by Dr. Shishir Ram Shetty, faculty and specialist in Oral Radiology from United Arab Emirates.
Hello everybody. So today we'll have a brief discussion about object localization technique. Now this term means to find out the exact location of an impacted tooth or a foreign body or any of the object which you have discovered radiographically. You have seen radiographically and you want to make sure that it is in the buccal side or the palatal side, close to the root apex, close to the neurovascular bundle or something like that. So that is the whole idea of object localization. Now what we expect you to do or what we expect you to understand by the end of this lecture is, suppose you have a clinical scenario like an impacted canine in the OPG or an IOPA, and then you need to know whether it is in the buccal side or the lingual side so that you can detect or you can determine your treatment planning. What technique would you use? So by the end of this lecture, we expect you to know what kind of a technique you will use to detect whether it's on the buccal side or on the lingual side. Now we have a lot of techniques to determine whether they are buccally placed or lingually placed or close to any other important anatomical structures. But the main one, which is used routinely in our clinical practice, is the Slob technique. Now the Slob technique may not be useful in all cases, but there are certain other imaging modalities, the CBCT or a combination of other extraoral radiographs that can be used to exactly localize the position of the object which you are interested in. Okay, so the Slob technique is a very important technique as far as the undergraduate what you call curriculum is concerned in oral radiology. Now the question arises, where do we actually use this technique? We have got three indications here: impacted teeth, to determine the location of an impacted teeth, odontomas, supernumeraries, foreign body within the jaw. But I feel the biggest or the most common use of this technique would be when you are in your clinical posting and you are doing an endodontic case. So what will happen? You will have to locate two mesial canals, root canals in a mandibular teeth, and you would have use your files and you take a radiograph, and then you'll have to detect which one is buccal, which one is lingual, and that time Slob technique will be used by you very, very frequently compared to the other indications. So please do remember, it is an easy technique. It just involves two radiographs, and that has to be taken with a different horizontal angulation. The exact definition, we go word by word. If the impacted object moves in the same direction of the cone during the second radiograph, the impacted object or the tooth is located in the lingual or palatal aspect of the dental arch. If the impacted object moves in the opposite direction of the cone in the second radiograph you take with a different horizontal angulation, it is located on the buccal or the labial side of the dental arch. And remember something very important: if it doesn't move in the same side or in the different side, and it is exactly in the same position as that of the first radiograph, that means it is in the arch. Okay, so Slob will tell you whether it is lingual or buccal, but if it is not moving either way, then it is exactly in the arch. The impacted tooth is in the plane of the arch also. So that is another possibility. Now let us imagine a clinical situation. You all do practice for the central incisor, you do your practice, and then suddenly you realize that one of your batchmates has got an impacted canine. Now let's concentrate on impacted canine on the right side. Okay, and the central incisor has got a root canal. The gutta-percha stick can be seen, the root canals, and there is an impacted canine. Now we want to make sure that it is on the buccal side or the lingual side. So what do? We take a second radiograph, okay, as a part of the Slob technique. Now the question is, how do I take the second radiograph? Now definitely it should be with a different horizontal position. So what I do, I move it to a distal position as shown in the image. Now it is not a strict rule. It is left up to the operator. If you want to move mesial direction, you can move on the mesial direction. But I prefer to move on the distal direction. Okay. So you move on to the distal direction as shown in the image, and then you take the second radiograph. Okay. So that's important that you move in the distal direction. Okay, now you took the second radiograph, you are done the processing, and the second radiograph is ready. Now you see the second radiograph. The canine seems to have moved in the distal direction. The crown of the canine, which was so near to the catapercha stick of the central incisor in the first radiograph, seems to be drifting away in the second radiograph. So this means that the impacted tooth has moved in the same direction as that of a cone. And that means that by Slob rule, same size is lingual. That means the impacted canine is on the lingual aspect of the dental arch. So this is how you use the technique effectively to locate the position of an impacted canine. Not just the Slob technique, there are other techniques as well. Now, one popular technique in the past decades was the orthogonal technique. Now, what does the orthogonal technique mean? It means three different radiographs which will show views exactly 90 degrees to each other. So, an example would be PA view, okay, posterior anterior view of the skull, lateral ceph, okay, that is used for orthodontic purpose, and the submentovertex radiograph. As you see, all these three radiographs are at 90 degrees to each other. That's the orthogonal technique. However, this technique has lost its popularity. In fact, after the CBCT and the CT imaging have come into the routine practice. So it is a technique which is useful when you do not have these imaging modalities around. But currently, with the CBCT and the CT on, this technique seems to have lost its popularity. Here we have the CBCT section, and the section is the sagittal section. Now, in these sections, if you thoroughly study the sections, you can see that there is an impacted tooth. Below the impacted tooth, on the palatal aspect, we can also observe a small tooth-like structure. Now, this could most likely be an impacted canine, and together with an impacted canine, there could be a possibility of a mesial dents also. Now, with a conventional radiographic technique, it would have been very difficult for the surgeon to determine whether the impacted tooth is located on the buccal or the palatal aspect, and then he can plan his surgery. But with a CBCT, it becomes very easy for a surgeon or an orthodontist who wants to get this canine into the arch to plan a surgical procedure and get it into the exact location. This is a kind of advantage which the CBCT gives compared to the conventional technique. So this was a brief idea required at the undergraduate level regarding the subject localization.